It's 8:45 p.m. on a Thursday. You're home alone when four heavy knocks hit the front door. Through the peephole, you see a man in a baseball cap, close. When you watch him walk back down the driveway, the anomalies pile up. There is no delivery van, no idling car, and no company logo. He simply walks around the corner and vanishes. Survival relies on pattern recognition, a mental shortcut that matches current events to past experiences to save processing power. When the brain registers a uniform and a box, it tends to bypass the filters usually reserved for strangers, defaulting instead to the thousands of safe deliveries you've processed since childhood. This creates a massive vulnerability. If a predator understands that psychological shortcut, they can use our own survival mechanisms to disable our defenses. We find the most effective human traps at the intersection of calculated planning and the predictable patterns of a polite society. This starts with the probe, the initial phase where a predator tests the perimeter. The man at the door wasn't delivering a package. He was carrying an empty prop and a scanner that wasn't connected to any network. His objective was reconnaissance. By returning multiple nights in a row, he could map the homeowner's exact occupancy schedule, learning exactly when the house was full and when the street went quiet. The probe relies on the victim's social conditioning. We are trained from a young age to be helpful, and the predator expects that reflex will drive the victim to open the door and correct the delivery mistake. Police discovered a systematic approach. On a neighborhood grid, houses where a door was answered were logged as occupied. Ignored knocks flagged a residence as a vulnerable target. Once the pattern is established, the node moves to the rear, testing the back door for entry. The probe is a weaponization of basic courtesy. It transforms the simple act of answering a knock into a data point for a home invasion. While the probe tests a boundary, the lure draws the victim across it. In Oregon, a high-end sectional couch listed on Facebook Marketplace at a fraction of its value served as the digital bait. Upon arrival, a simple sticky note on the front door instructed the buyer to walk around back. This was physical misdirection, intentionally pulling the target away from the safety of the street and into a cliffside backyard with a single point of exit. The trap was revealed the moment the buyer looked back at the house. Every blind had been opened, and behind every pane of glass stood a person, perfectly still and smiling, staring down at him from the dark. This bizarre, motionless display was designed to induce cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort of holding two contradictory ideas at the same time. The brain expects a threat to look aggressive or loud, but it's presented with something silent and seemingly friendly. This internal contradiction can paralyze a target in confusion, buying the predator the time needed for the flight response to fail. The lure weaponizes the victim's own desire for a good deal, leading them willingly into a trap that is both geographically isolated and psychologically paralyzing. The most effective traps utilize a Trojan horse, using a known entity to bypass threat detection entirely. In the case of a high school student named Sienna, she used a classmate's romantic interest in her to lead him directly into a clearing. She took the lead on an unfamiliar trail, confidently guiding him down an unmaintained, isolated fork in the woods. Because he trusted her, he ignored the narrowing path and the lack of other hikers. The ambush triggered when Sienna vanished. She had delivered the victim to two adult men waiting in the dense brush, effectively acting as the guide for his own capture. On a standard threat perimeter, the brain flags anything unrecognized as a danger, but when a friendly signal guides the victim, the logic bypasses the perimeter entirely. The insider masks the threat, allowing the ambush to close in before a single alarm goes off. The Trojan horse is a total subversion of trust. It relies on the victim being an active, if unwitting, participant in their own walk into a trap. While the mechanics of these traps are varied, the survival of the targets came down to a single shared realization. They survived because they were willing to break the social contract. This is the unwritten set of rules that governs our daily interactions, telling us to be helpful, to stay quiet, and to finish what we started. We see this in their specific acts of defiance. The designer who refused to answer the door, the buyer who sprinted for his truck without a polite word, and the teenager who stopped looking for his date, turned his back, and fought his way out of the dense woods. Human intuition is an evolutionary alarm system designed to detect micro-anomalies in our environment. However, modern etiquette often trains us to prioritize politeness over that primitive survival instinct. Predators specifically bank on this conditioning. They assume their targets will be too compliant, too deeply entrenched in routine, or too afraid of being rude to acknowledge the danger and run. In a world where traps are disguised as everyday encounters, your best defense is the intuition you've been taught to ignore. The moment a situation feels wrong, you have every right to stop being polite.